Hey folks, hope you're doing well. This is Michael with the Reason RX podcast. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're getting a lot of value out of this. Just want to remind you and ask if you could recommend it to your friends, recommend it to people you know who are parents. This would be really valuable information for teachers, schools, administrators, anybody involved in education or parenting. All this information is really valuable, something we need to really develop our children and students, have them become really happy and thriving, develop them in all their different aspects. The whole person has the whole life. We need physical fitness, cognitive fitness, logic skills, emotional stability, emotional skills, all these different aspects, as I say, of being a person, social skills, to live a happy, thriving life. But I hope you're enjoying it, and if you'd, recommend it to people, if you would give a good rating, give a rational review, or if you're able to, if you donate for the show, help have better recording equipment, better sound recording technology, software equipment. We'd be able to do more with the show. Maybe if we paid someone, they could do extensive show notes, a lot more detailed, a lot more links. It'd be nice if some like Reason RX t-shirts or something like that. Or if you know someone who would be willing to be like a patron or big donor or something like that, that would help. But I hope you're enjoying it, and as I say, hope it's a value, and we're all giving and taking value for value in return. So let's go ahead and get started with the show today. Hey folks, okay, so we're here today with the great Dani Hemmat. Did I pronounce your last name right, Dani? Good.
You did.
I didn't butcher
Thanks
it.
for the extra adjective. That is awesome.
Just one for now. So we're going to be talking about movement, exercise, health, wellness, holistic living, more insight into that from someone else to such an important concept, such an important aspect of human life. So anything to say, Melanie?
No, I'm excited to hear what she has to share with us today. It's going to be great.
Would you agree? It's important for parents, teachers, students, everybody. Really an important part of education. Because
yeah, right, for sure.
Like, I don't remember if I've said it in a podcast, but I know one time when you and I were talking, just to give a simple example, one time years ago, I was tutoring someone in geometry, and the kid was all hardcore, and we were doing stuff in the summer going like 2 hours long, and we were like 45 minutes or an hour in and doing geometry. And because, he's from Russia, and so he cared more about academics than like many Americans, unfortunately. And he was doing geometry in the summer before taking it at his like elite private school.
Mm-hmm.
But he's, kind of young, and so 45 minutes in, an hour, he's dozing off a little bit, kind of getting brain dead. So I got out a tennis ball. I go, here, catch. So we started tossing it back and forth a little while.
Oh, brilliant.
And then, so he was standing up, tossing it back and forth. And so I go, okay, now try that proof again. Because he was just not doing anything on this proof, and I knew he knew how to do it. Yeah. So after tossing the tennis ball, he sat down, and he just busted it out.
Mm-hmm,
it's just because he needed the movement. That's part of being a human being. We're holistic. We're not little adding machines that can just sit down and crank it out like a computer on the ground.
Yeah. Totally. And especially for boys, I went to a lecture by a well-known psychologist that boys really do need more of that. Girls need to know they can move when they want. Like that needs to be their thing, is that because girls do sit still more often most of the time and process that way. But the male process is more through movement.
Interesting.
And so that's really That's really cool. I have a question. Are we all on wobble stools? Because this is like recording a podcast with weebles. I'm watching all of us rock back and forth. Are we all in some form of standing or moving thing? Like, yeah. I'm on a wobble stool right now.
I'm at a stand-up desk, and I got this.
Okay.
I got a lacrosse ball.
You're on your ball. Ground. Okay.
Yeah, I'm playing with it.
I was going to mention I have a piano student. I'm a piano teacher too, Dani.
Oh,
I
cool.
have a private studio, and there is a boy, and this is the beanbag I use with him. But it's funny because he came up with it. He saw it sitting there.
Nice.
And I said, not that he was thinking like, hey, let's do this and I'll probably play the piano better. He's 7, so I don't think that was quite his goal. But I did notice that it kind of warmed him up to the idea of being here in the first place. You know, it's hard for little kids sometimes because they don't know why they're taking piano. But so anyway, this worked for him too. So I think there's some, like when you were saying, Dani, about boys in particular, you are right. I think there is something to that.
Yeah, like in preschool when they're all sitting in circle time and the little boys start to squirm and the teacher, might get annoyed because the little girls are sitting so well and they're wondering, why can't these boys sit? But they're listening, they're just processing in the way that they know best, that their brains work. So it was good to learn that. I wish I had learned that sooner. I had a very still little boy, so I didn't really ever, make those things. But I did teach little kids like in religious school and stuff and notice that. So that's really helpful information, is that if you got to have an emotional talk, like maybe with your son or, your husband or whatever, don't sit him down on the couch and make the poor guy look at you. Go out for a walk, because the chances are he's going to process what you're saying much more, and he's going to start to be thinking about something totally different if he's sitting still and looking at you. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then if they're looking around a little bit, it doesn't mean they're not paying attention. They're
totally
just processing. Or I know someone who would get mad at a guy she knew if she was talking to him and he went to get a drink of water. Instead of like being a processing thing, it's, oh, you're ignoring me and men versus women and blah 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 blah.
But what about the computer screen? All of a sudden the laptop opens, the typing starts, the clicking. I mean, what about that though?
But that's not so much movement. I think that's definitely an avoidance technique.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Unless they're taking notes. Wait, Melanie, what you're saying is so important. Let me get up my computer and.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm putting this into Google Translate to see if it sounds better in Greek, because right now, not so good.
I
have to make this more entertaining for myself.
Well, I suppose we should introduce her.
Yeah, so,
look at we already
give us her.
So, folks, so you know who this awesome, funny, you don't know if a person's a genius yet, or how smart they are. So, in order for the folks to respect you and know they should be down on their knees right now, will you please tell us about yourself, Dani? Oh, hell!
Wow. Now, what sort of things am I going to have to make up here? How quickly can I think? So I am 48. I live in Boulder, Colorado. I have a couple of kids. I'm a single mom. And just the short part of it, I was a writer by trade and spent many years in a seat. Ended up in terrible, terrible pain, chronic pain, hooked on painkillers, and just miserable, like moving like an old, decrepit person, unable to pick up my kids, unable to jump on the trampoline with my kids, all these things. And I searched for everything that I could. I became a personal trainer thinking, I'm out of shape. That's the problem. I'm in pain because I need to work out in a gym. And so I got my personal training certification, nothing. I started noticing that even though I was more fit, I still had pain. And my clients had pain, even though they were getting fit. So there's something that wasn't working, like the logic wasn't there. And I'm very curious, and I'm always asking questions. Like I'm a pretty decent critical thinker, I think. So I was always asking, like, why is this not working? And I came across this woman called Katie Bowman, who probably tons of your listeners know about her. If you don't know, then after you're done listening to this podcast, be respectful and listen to it, whether you need to go get a drink of water or not. And then afterward, go and type in Katie Bowman into your browser and see what you can find. But I read through it. Yeah, look at the show notes.
Lots of show notes. So,
but no, it's okay. And everything. So I started doing the stuff that she was saying physically, and all of a sudden, like years of foot pain was gone within a week. Okay. So that was like a big, I mean, for me, the proof is always in the pudding. You could tell me whatever you want, but like what is right there is probably going to be what I'm going to listen to. But her work not only made sense in the body, but it made sense in the mind. So everything clicked. Very scientific, very logical. Like it just, there was no goofy, hypothetical, anything about it. It's like, this is how this works. And that's how that works. You put it together and ta-da. So I got better and better and better. And after about 3 months of doing her stuff, because she's very generous with information and there's tons and tons of stuff on, out there online. She's very free with that. I started to think, you know what? No one knows about this stuff. And so I called up the Institute. I got my guts together and I called up the Institute. And I was just going to talk to somebody and see, like, how could I learn from this person? I didn't know there was a training program or anything like that. I just wanted to say, please help me teach this to other people. And I called and this person answered. And I start gushing about this Katie Bowman and how great she is and how much she's helped. And I could just feel like this weird, uncomfortable, almost like somebody was taking the phone away from their head while I was like, going, Katie Bowman, blah, blah, blah. And then I finally paused and the person on the other line said, this is Katie Bowman. And I mean, really, I just nearly died just because, it's like Elvis answering the phone or something. And that was it. That was the story. And it turns out we lived an hour away from each other. I lived on a little island outside of Seattle. She lived like out on this peninsula outside of that island. So it was just wild that we connected that way. And that was it. That changed my whole life. And so I will end this very long story by saying, after doing this work, this nutritious movement, this restorative exercise I've been doing it for 8 years now, I move better at 48 than I did at 25. And I love to help people feel that same way. So that's kind of what I do. I write and I help people,
that's great.
Move better. My business is Move Your Body Better, because you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to match the person on the yoga mat next to you. But we really are these incredible machines. And could move better.
Really resilient, and maybe we could never be the optimum we could have been if we would have had everything perfect from the start and going well, but we're resilient and we can do the best we can, and that's the point. We can still move really well. I think
that's very true.
The same with me. I can move better now than when I was younger.
Yeah. And that's just a gift. It's a gift you give yourself. And it's, if you can teach other people this, which is what you guys are doing, you're giving a gift to everybody, and it just spreads like this really awesome, I don't want to say virus or fungus, because those are things that people think are awesome, but it grows, thank you. It grows awesome sauce. It just grows on the organism of us all doing this, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because I remember, MoveNat stuff was like 8 years ago or something when I first started getting into natural movement. I just remember watching this video of Erwin LaCour, climbing a rock face or whatever, and admiring his shoulder blade placement, which is a very good thing to admire. But it's like, wow, his shoulder girdle's really in the right place.
Cool.
But yeah, that was a very weird and rare thing that was getting passed around the internet. Like, what's this freak doing? And I love that now it's more talked about and more readily accessible to people.
I like on your website, I pulled it up quick because I wanted to see that. And there's a great quote, or like just a thing that you wrote here that says, it says, living longer doesn't mean much if you can't move or take care of yourself. I mean, that's amazing to think, because we are living longer and we need to know how are we going to make that a good lifestyle and not something where you're just slowly crippling. And granted, I'm sure it catches up with you eventually, but can't it be a lot later than...
Well, and not necessarily, yeah. There's people that are living longer, but we're also building houses with toilets where they don't have to sit down as far to the toilet, So it's like we're kind of like creating this WALL-E situation to help us extend these lives, which don't really seem that fun if I need all these orthotics to help me get by.
Can you explain the Wall-E thing to make sure people get that?
Okay, so the Disney Pixar film Wall-E, where it's the future, and we've really screwed up the Earth, and everybody's like living on this giant space station or something, and they're all getting carried along in these fantastic like floating recliners, and they don't have to do a darn thing. There's a screen in front of them. There's a drink in front of them. I know. See, Michael's shivering right now. You guys can't see this, but he's getting the shivers. And I totally get it, because it's a freaking nightmare. It's a nightmare for me to think about that. And so we're kind of, these are all these great orthotics that we're coming up with as a society are really going to hinder our movement later on.
Yeah. I like the way, y'all put that. And Katie says, like, orthotics or casts. I think I've explained that in other things, other podcasts, if people remember the episodes, like, just on the metaphor of a cast on your arm. You put your arm in a cast and the movement's limited. You're separated from reality, and then it becomes really weak. And that happens, like, it's a good concept to take into a lot of other things like chairs, because they kind of cast us in the same way. Make us weak.
Yeah, or even your really cool backup screen on your car. It's very useful to have that, but you don't really turn your head from side to side like you did with your old Honda Civic back in the 70s. And I mean, not that I was driving in the 70s, but that's how old my Honda Civic was when I was 15. But it's, if you rented a car or like something terrible happened, you're out in the desert and you have to get into another car, and you have to like turn your head after years of looking at that backup screen only. How well are you going to be able to turn from side to side and look over your left and right shoulder to get a clear view of where you're supposed to back up? Because, there's so much to hit in the desert. That was a terrible example.
Well, there is. I mean, you got to watch for, like, snakes and cactus, because some cactus are really tall.
Snakes and cactus, that's right.
Some cactus are really tall, and people are, like, they're with their damn four-wheelers, they run them over, and you got this cactus that's really delicate, and it's taken, like, 100 years to grow, these big tall ones, and then it dies, and it's hard to replace it.
Oh my gosh, infuriating and tragic. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so look where you're going.
Okay, sorry,
drivers.
we're on a bad note. Okay,
okay.
Okay, we're gonna have a Katie Bowman movement break. Okay, so everybody, look away from your screen for 10 seconds. Look off to the distance.
Look over your right shoulder and your left shoulder. Pretend you're driving an old car.
And then push your head backwards, because a lot of people have bent their neck forward to look at their screen. So if you push your head backwards, and undo that.
Yep. Line.
That was, we say at Katie's school, when it used to be a school, it was if you have a double chin, that's a good start. If you can put your chin back and you have that beautiful double chin, then you're on your way. Well on your way.
That's good.
Cool. Okay, I feel better now. So.
Me too.
And so you got a degree. Was it University of Montana in writing?
I didn't. Actually, I did French and German at University of Montana. Go figure, in interpersonal communications. But I'd always written, and then after school, I just writing was something I could do by having little kids at home. It's easier to be a freelance writer because you do it whenever they're not sitting in front of you or, wiping something on you. And it's it was just something that I've always done, and it was a great way to earn money. But that was pre-Katie, and so I was just sitting. I had bought that was one thing I splurged on, a really expensive Herman Miller Aeron chair. Remember those chairs? That they're like, I don't know, $800 or something, and they're supposed to be the best chair to sit in.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're still sitting all day, and I didn't know anything, and so that's when my brain really started to kick in.
You got 3 degrees?
No.
Sounded like 3.
I know. I have no degrees. I never finished. I actually left school a year and a half before I was done to go to Russia to open up a chain of coffee bars. That's a whole other story for a whole other podcast.
Okay, we'll save it.
I'm not going to go there. So
news to me.
I'm not going to go there. Yes.
Huh. Cool. All right. Let me control myself and breathe. I want to ask questions about it, but I will restrain myself.
Okay.
Cool. So
I was heading to Siberia to sell coffee. Just imagine that. Hold on, sorry. I have a bunch of dogs.
How many?
Just 2 right now. Went from 3 to 2 about 2 months ago. So.
Yeah, what kind? What dogs?
I have a Chihuahua rescue and a Boxer rescue.
Cool.
So, yes.
But one thing that we can develop out of that, which you've been saying too, I think it'd be helpful for everybody else. I think, were you just not moving at all, or were you like differentiating between exercise and movement? And you thought, well, I got exercise, and I did my like 3 half-hour sessions of exercise this week, so I'm okay.
Right. That's totally what I was doing. When I started so I was writing, sorry, I'm like texting my daughter to tell her to go, please take care of the Boxer. Has this big chesty bark. I was writing, I'm sitting in my $800 chair and I'm still getting pain. And, so I was like, I need to go to yoga. That's what I need to do. I need to go to yoga, and I need to start working out and lifting weights because I'm out of shape, and that's the pain. And yeah, it was just, nothing, so I lost some inches and got a little bit stronger, but none of that pain went away for me. Very frustrating, with that investment of time and money to do that. And then I had figured out, I had 2 very large babies. I'm not very tall. I'm like not even 5'4", but I had a 10.5 pound and an 8.5 pound baby. So those are some pretty big watermelons to be carrying around. Yeah. And I had a terrible diastasis recti from years of, standing out of alignment and then having these huge babies. And so I went to study with a person who taught a way supposedly to close that diastasis recti. And if you don't, have you guys ever talked about that on the podcast?
No.
So that's like the split between your basically your abdominal muscles when they separate apart. And so like kind of that little pooch that maybe a woman has after, and a man can have it too, from too many babies or too many beers, basically. That's called diastasis recti, or DR, we call it. And so I had studied with this person. I went to New York. I spent all this money. They gave me all these crazy exercises to do, but it was nothing to do with like movement or alignment. It was just doing like 300 or 500 of these abdominal exercises every day, which everyone knows that an adult who has children has so much time to spend doing, 500 or 600 ab exercises. So I really invested myself and my time and my belief in that. And that was the final straw that broke the camel's back, on my back, I guess, that led me to Katie, because I had maxed out on frustration. I'd gotten my personal training certification through NASM and done that. And I still, the answer still wasn't there. I still had the pain, and I knew, it was like something deep inside me knew that I did not need to live with that pain, because I have this theory about pain. Can I tell you?
Sure. Yeah.
So we get these little pains, and a lot of people will just, say, oh, welcome to getting older, that's haha, or welcome to being a parent, or it's just so lame. But we live with it, and it sucks for a little bit, but pretty soon we're so used to it all of a sudden. And it doesn't take us very long, because you have to go about your life. You just can't stop your life because you have pain, right? You still have to put food on the table and get things done. And so we kind of like bring it along with us so that we can go through our day. And this pain in very short time becomes our companion. And it's a really lousy companion. It's like a dysfunctional relationship that we don't need, but we've accepted, just like we can accept those in real life. Like if anybody's ever been in a dysfunctional relationship listening to this podcast, please raise your hand. And so we accept it. And soon we're carrying this little rotten companion with us all the time. And it's like, and we even call it things like my back pain. My leg pain, my foot pain. Like we're possessive of these things because it's mine. I bring it with me everywhere. And so something in my head like clicked, like, I don't want to live my life this way. I'm too young to be immobilized by all these companions that are hanging on me like monkeys on a tree. And that's really what, just opened up my eyes to this different way of like, hey, maybe it's not how many weights you should be lifting or even that extra 10 pounds you're carrying around, but maybe there's a different answer, and it's movement. It's getting out of whatever you've been doing hasn't been working. So it's really time to go in a completely different direction. That was how I ended up doing this.
And one thing that's interesting in that regard too, and I've said it in other episodes, but because this is the one with Dani, this is the one people will listen to. They won't listen to any of the others. So this is the first time they'll hear it. But I heard someone was talking about how a lot of animals don't have as much depression because they move more. And that's one way they deal with pain. And so I think that seems like one factor. It's a contributing factor to some of the psychological problems people have.
Oh, totally.
And so, it ties in really well, I think, with what you're saying about the pain. Sometimes, yeah, it's physical, but sometimes we develop pain just because we're not moving and we're holding in some psychological thing we had.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
I'm sure at this point, anyone they're very curious. What is the movement? Because I've been hearing you building up to now, Dani, and I'm just going to go right in and ask for them because they're going to all wonder what to do. And please share that with us.
I need to clarify because right now it just sounds like an interminable infomercial, right? So we sit in these chairs, we walk in these shoes, we walk on these sidewalks, we're in these cars, all these things. And then we go to our exercise class or yoga class or CrossFit even, I'm doing CrossFit, and that's great, but it's like an hour a day if you're lucky, right? You get to do it 5 days a week if you're really lucky, but say you do it 3 days a week, and we're considering that like, I really need to get some, and we don't even say I need to get some movement. We say I need to get some exercise, right? So we go to exercise class for an hour. Movement is something that happens all the time, all day long. And in order to do movement, we have to really think about this environment we're living in. This like kind of zoo or cage that we are housed in. And I know that sounds terrible, but it is. Your chairs, they're kind of all the same, and your shoes, they're kind of all the same, and the sidewalk's the same. And if you think about doing the same all the time, you're going to form into that. Whatever the sameness is around you, your body's going to adapt to that because we're extremely adaptable creatures. Like we're remarkable. Whether it's to our benefit or to our detriment, we're very, very adaptable. So movement is more of what's happening all day long. So right now I am sitting on a wobble stool while we're recording this, and it's going back and forth. I can stretch out my legs. I can move around. I'm watching, Michael, and he's standing up and rocking back and forth and working on his foot with his rolly ball under his foot. So he's still like totally with me and talking and doing this thing, but he's getting some movement in. And so I think all these things like, okay, here's an example. So I'm, newly divorced, and when my ex would empty the dishwasher in the morning, whoever got up first had to empty the dishwasher while the water for the coffee was heating up. And so I'd come down like a few minutes after, he had done it, and every pot or pan that had to be put in a lower cupboard was still sitting on top of the cupboard because he didn't want or could not squat. Like it was too uncomfortable. So to me, that's like a really great example of movement. There was that lack of movement where he could not put the saucepan down below, so it was left for me to do. And I never groused about it because I was like, well, that gives me a chance, to bend and squat and do all these things. But, there's so many things. Like there's people that they can't get down on the floor. And to me, that's the most fundamental thing, to be able to get down on the floor, because if you're going to have grandkids, or you're going to drop your contact, or, you're going to want to do anything that works beyond the plane of standing up, you have to move around and be able to move in different planes.
How many people here have ever dropped their keys? Raise your hand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you see those things about, scrub your feet in the shower without bending over, to me, that's just like, it's a trap. Don't go that way. It's like, that's not a moon. It's like, that's a trap. Because you're like, oh, I hate bending down to wash my feet, and now I totally don't have to. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to buy this orthotic, and now I'm going to be able to bend even less. Uh-huh. So if something, God forbid, happens, that maybe I'm walking with my grandkid, or I drop my keys or anything, I'm going to have to tug on somebody next to me and say, could you please do this for me? And then we just added another orthotic, because now we have like all these assistants around us to do this. So movement is all day long. You do things, whether you go to work, or you're at home, or you're brushing your teeth, or you're going to the bathroom. These are all things we have to do. But do you do them in the same way every day? Do you always brush your teeth with your right hand if you're right-handed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So in the morning, I brush my teeth with my right hand. In the morning, in the evening, I brush them with my left.
Huh. That's great.
Which at first is awkward, weird, and terrible. And like we've talked about this before in different arenas, but you can do this with like wiping your bottom when you go to the bathroom, like all these things, putting on your makeup, combing your hair, reaching for your coffee cup. Like, these are things that if you get stuck in these patterns, one day it's going to be like the Tin Man in the forest.
Or even one thing to do, a simple thing is, like when you put your shirt on, put the right in first and the left. Sometimes put the left and the right. If you're used to doing one thing, you'd be surprised at how strange it feels to do even that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only is that great for your muscles and your body, because if your left shoulder is always used to following suit and not having to bend as much or whatever, but it also for your brain, and you guys know this as teachers, both of you, that you can keep the more, like, I have this thing above my desk that says body not stiff, mind stiff. Like, it's not, it's all up here in your head that matters. And so part of that is helping grow those new neural pathways by doing those little tiny changes. And I love these things like brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, or putting on your shirt the different way, or whatever, because all these things cost nothing, like no pennies, nothing. You don't have to go to a $15 drop-in yoga class. You don't have to pay for nothing. But you're working your body and you're building your mind. And that's so cool to me. Like, that's available to you just by switching things up a little bit. I walk up the stairs and I look like it's a horror movie, because I actually crawl up the stairs, like the opposite of The Exorcist, when she like crawls backwards. I crawl up the stairs every time I go up the stairs, unless I have a basket of laundry.
Yeah.
because I'm spreading out my hands, right? I'm putting weight on my wrists and my joints and things like that, and stretching out those tendons and everything. And it looks ridiculous, I'm sure, to see me scramble up the stairs like that. But I'm going up anyway. Mm-hmm. And stairs don't really appear in nature. Rarely do they appear in nature. So stairs are like a weird, unnatural thing. So why not make them a little more natural? And if I was going up a rock step in nature, I would be definitely scrambling. I certainly would not be standing upright, right? Or else I'd fall backward or hit some scree or something, and then I'd have trouble. So I would be scrambling. And if you've ever been to like a yoga class, or if you go to those classes where people are down on the floor a little bit, look at some people's hands, and their hands will be curled because they're only on the floor for that yoga class, and they have grown accustomed to being able to get by. Or they do the fist for wrist things. If your wrist hurt, make a fist. Well, that's an orthotic you just gave yourself by doing that. But if you just slowly use your hands on the floor more, then pretty soon you're going to be able to have this nice starfish of a hand that doesn't hurt when you open it up on the floor. And then a whole different level of the world opens up to you.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is a lot to take in, Dani. It's so amazing. That's a really great approach to your daily life. That's kind of the key, isn't it? It seems like it's what you've kind of honed in on is what can we do just as we're living, because you don't have to go to the, like you said, expensive gym or so that's great. I mean, that's what people really need to hear, because they all have daily lives and they're not taking the opportunity that you're saying is right there and available for them.
Right. I mean, if you're, a homemaker and you're at home, you really have the best of everything. If you're somebody that's at home, don't feel like if you're a parent stuck at home that you can't, move, or, well, when the kids grow up, then I'll get in shape or whatever, because you've got all day to do this cool stuff. Like, instead of folding laundry at waist level on your bed or whatever, get down on the floor and do it. Boom. You just went to exercise class.
Or have a bunch of friends over. Instead of going to yoga class and having social activity, everybody come over, you do your laundry, you get on the floor, everyone does their laundry together, you get to talk, you're on the floor, you can give ideas for moving around, and then you get together and cook, and then you're still moving. It's social and all this other stuff, and you can help each other move, and it can be fit, it can be fitted in.
Yeah, it is. And I love that so hard. I just love that because it's so easy, so affordable, and so simple. I mean, all these ideas, we've just been talking for a few minutes and we have all these ideas. So,
and then people need to, really quickly. Yeah. Go ahead, throw first and I'll throw a second.
Okay. I was just going to throw that I feel like, because I do it, it's really good for me. My kitchen floor, as you can imagine, with 3 kids, it gets just covered. Instead of the mop where you're standing here and you're just doing this, I get down on hands and knees and I'm using this as a chance to
cool.
Stretch and go a little further than what you normally, I mean, that is a workout.
That is awesome. And you probably have a cleaner floor than somebody who's standing upright with a mop. I bet $1 million you do. Yeah. And awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. So there's another way.
Yeah. it's good. And some people need to, it'd help if they'd realize that they're actually getting some exercise. Because unfortunately, some people stress themselves out, make themselves unhealthy by thinking they're not. Like, oh, I'm a mom and I don't have time for exercise and I got to take care of my kid. And what would they do if they went to the gym? They'd go on the treadmill. Maybe they get some 10 or 20 pound dumbbells and work out with those. But remember, people who take care of kids, mostly women, some men, a child weighs 10, 20, 30 pounds. If you're picking the child up, you are working out,
Yeah.
It's a child and it's someone you love, but in another perspective, from physics perspective, it's also a weight. So
absolutely. Yeah, you have to swing them around like a kettlebell, but you're working out,
Yeah.
You are. And you're lifting and you can do your squats with that kid. You can carry them. I mean, I so often, and this is also a whole different thing, see people with their babies in strollers when they're out for exercise. And I just think, wow, you would be killing it, man, for yourself and that baby if you were just holding that kid. Mm-hmm. Because, the kid has to work, you have to work. It's just so much more natural than having them in a device like that. And it's there's all these ways. There's really no shortage of clever, simple ways for you to get more movement into your life. Even if it's just as simple as grabbing a racquetball and keeping it under your desk, kicking off your shoe at work and rolling that ball underneath your foot while your boss is, boring you with his talk about the TPS reports or whatever. It's just you can get that movement, but we become accustomed to one way, just like becoming accustomed to our pain companions. We become accustomed to the way the society is built around us with chairs, shoes, etc., and even social norms. Like, I go to a waiting room at a doctor's office and I stand. Now, it drives my kids crazy. They're very embarrassed, but I sat for maybe an hour to get to that doctor or whatever in the car. So why in God's name would I want to sit again? And I'm going to stand, even though people in the office are looking at me like, what's going on? Is she going to murder us? But no, I just really need to move a different way than I've been moving. So that's one thing that you can think of if you're new to this world or you're just kind of getting into it. You just take what you do, whether it's, grabbing a saucepan or brushing your teeth, and just think for 1 second, how could this be a little bit different? And I know you're going to come up with a couple of ways. Even if you just come up with one way, at least you've got that other thing to do. And that's kind of fun. It's like this great scavenger hunt of how can I rearrange my day with more movement.
Yeah, and start small, just like Dani's saying. If someone hadn't done much and they're wondering what to do, start small. Contact Dani too. That's one thing. But start small, do a little bit, and then you see what you can do and do a lot more from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
just step by step.
So valuable.
So
about the ball under the foot, Dani, I wanted to just ask you quick. Is that a stress reliever for the feet? Because what is that for exactly? Just curious.
There's so many things. One, it feels really good on the fascia, the tissue, in the between the muscles of your feet, because they're in shoes all day, so they're kind of just like, it's like if you took your piano students, you teach piano, right?
Yeah.
If you taped the little hands up in mittens with duct tape, and you did that for 6 weeks, and then you set them down at the piano and said, okay, now let's do our finger spreads and our exercises and scales. Their little hands would still be, even if you cut off the duct tape mittens, they'd still be in the shape of those mittens. So your feet are essentially doing the same thing, but take your age and then -3, and then that's how many years you've been wearing mittens on your feet, essentially, if you're wearing shoes. Mm-hmm. So your feet have a lot of tension just from lack of movement, which seems counter, intuitive, but it does. Yeah. And so rolling that ball under his foot right now, well, he's doing so much. Like, he's actually working all the tissue up to the top of his head, because, I've studied myofascial release and stuff. So everything he's doing for his feet, he's actually affecting all the way up to the top of his scalp, which is pretty cool. But he's also using his hips, his hip flexors, his lower back, his glutes, all these things to move the ball, because the ball's not moving for him. He has to make it happen. He has to make it so it doesn't roll away, right? So he's using a measure of control. So it's all these great things, and if your boss looks at you, if you're moving slightly while you're doing it, just, what the best thing to say, if ever you're doing something weird movement-wise and your coworker's boss, spouse, whatever, says, what the heck's going on? What are you doing? That's weird. You're making me uncomfortable. You can just say, my physical therapist told me to do it. It's a prescription. Just say that.
Or, I got to go to the bathroom really bad, but I don't want to leave this discussion.
Yeah. These are the white lies that help us get more, they help people feel more comfortable as they adjust to this kind of thinking. And so, I used to be and still, I'll go to maybe an exercise class or something. And if they're doing something like telling me to maybe, thrust my ribs or something that's going to really be bad for my back, I'll just pull out the old, I have an injury. And then they'll leave you alone. They won't, they're not going to force you past that. So, just keep a pocket of those white lies that enable you to get more movement, just like you've accepted having that pain companion with you. Once you've said goodbye to that dysfunctional relationship, you can just have a few little ways to get yourself out of, antisocial jail, basically.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could just talk to people and explain what's going on and how to do things better, but it doesn't work, unfortunately, for
occasionally
a lot of
you do have that one curious and open mind that will, and then, you can touch them and they can go, well, not touch them, but you can go on and talk to them. They can go on and talk to, and it's cool because then it spreads and it's that awesome sauce that we talked about. But pretty much you only have control over your own situation and you're your own example, and that's all you can be, whether you have kids and, or a spouse and who doesn't want to move. You can't make anybody do this because we all have our own choices, but you can be the example. Yes. And I've noticed over the last 8 years of, I stopped harping on my kids a long time ago. And once they started to actually need the correctives or the movement, that's when they started doing it. And because they'd seen me, they see their mom who's almost 50, moving like a kid. And so that right there, that's the best thing you can do is just be the example, and you get, movement to boot.
Yeah.
But we've just covered just about tons, haven't we? Good grief. You should have kept me in check. I could just go and go and go.
Where's the fun in that?
And I was going to ask, just as a quick summary, Dani, for the people that are listening, because this is going to be intriguing to many people.
We should meet again. We should talk again.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
Okay, you heard it on the air, folks. Dani said she's coming back.
I committed.
But if I could have you sum up, would you say that your pain, because a lot of people experience that, that's a huge reason they don't do stuff, is that probably a lot of the reason for the pain is because just moving through their day, their body is responding to that lack of movement by is that kind of what you're saying? I'm just trying to.
I think that's an apt assessment of it, is that you get that one little twinge in your back. You're told that it came from something, and it's usually not the thing that it was. It usually isn't the accumulation of lack of movement. The doctor will say, oh, you've got one leg shorter than the other, or, you need a back brace, or these things. And so you just accept it. And it, like I said, it becomes my pain, your pain. And that's when, I think that's right. And so then we stop moving even more. Like we're not moving, we get pain, and then we stop moving even more. So it's a never ending story that ends just badly.
Okay. So an Aggie, Texas A&M Aggies, okay, people out there, I'm not making fun of Aggies. I like Aggies. Okay. I'm just telling the joke. But, down here, UT and A&M are like brothers that fight a lot. I went to UT, and then the Aggies are in Texas also nearby. They have a big rivalry, and they're both cool, though. Some are good, just like anything else. Some are good, some aren't. Okay, so an Aggie, so y'all know. So an Aggie is someone who goes to Texas A&M. An Aggie goes to the doctor. He says, doctor, I hurt all over. I hurt here. Oh, when I touch here, it hurts. Oh, when I touch the shoulder, it hurts. Oh, when I touch my elbow, it hurts. Oh, I hurt all over. And the doctor says, no, your finger's broken.
Oh, I feel so bad for people just listening to this because they didn't get to see the dramatic interpretation that Michael just did telling that joke. I'd take you to any party, dude, because that was fun.
Yeah.
Better than Shakespeare. Right. Better than Macbeth.
Yeah, that was good.
But, so, yeah, kind of same thing. It's like, people would think they hurt, so they shouldn't move. But, ironically enough, it's the fact that they often, not all the time, but often that they should move. That's going to be the resolution.
It's true. And your movement doesn't need to include an hour out of your day at the gym. It just needs to move thinking, it just needs to contain thinking about, what do I do during the day? How can I do that differently? That's all it is. Just start thinking along those terms. If I can leave you with anything as the listener, it's that, what do I do during my day? Write it down if you want. Just keep a little notebook for 1 or 2 days and write down, here's how I move through my day from beginning to end. And then right from getting out of bed and turning off the alarm clock until you get back into bed. And then look at that and just brainstorm for just a second, and you'll find, how can I do it a little bit differently? And that's all you have to do. And then from there, it's just this fantastic snowball of movement that you will feel better. Mm-hmm. You don't need to go whole hog, just a little bit at a time, but you will feel better because we are designed to move. Just like that Leonardo da Vinci drawing of the Etruscan man, or however you say it, with the guy with all the arms and the circle and the legs. He's not just sitting in a damn chair, right? He's got a full range of motion. Mm-hmm. And so here's this guy back then that could see that and see what fantastic machines we truly are. And we're like horses that need to run, True. We need to move.
Mm-hmm. True.
Great. That's a great ending to our, first podcast.
Yeah. Well, you guys are a hoot, so of course I would talk with you again. I don't know what else I could say. You pretty much exhausted any sort of intelligence or ideas or, social ability and niceties that I had. That's it.
Good. So that's what we want. So we got rid of the social niceties. So next time we can have Dani in the raw. The real Dani.
That's right. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
You too.
Thanks for being here. Thanks.
So, we appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Go enjoy dinner.
Thank you.
Great.
Cool. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Yep,
Thanks.
Bye-bye.